so let's talk about Mongo. Right, so MongoDB is a database that we installed early on in the course, and we're going to be using it to store data permanently. All the data that we've been creating, we're going to store it in this database, and it's a non-SQL database, right? That means that it does not use SQL as the language for interacting with the database. It's a non-relational database. Relational databases have been around for several decades, and they were invented, to solve problems of several decades ago, right? If today, with today's problem, with today's applications, we had to reinvent the databases all over again, we would come up with something like Mongo or these non-SQL databases, right? Although they still cater to legacy databases, folks that you have the same basic ideas that you want to be able to insert data, you want to be able to retrieve data, you want to be able to update existing data, right? You want to be able to remove data. The basic operations that you have come to know and love in other databases. Okay, but they are trying to solve problems that are completely new today, right? The amount of data that we are generating today is just staggering. Right? We're generating more data than we will ever be able to use. Right? I think there was a study that we have generated 90% of all information that ever was created was generated in the last 10 years. So 90% of all the information that humanity has created in its lifespan has been generated just in the last couple of years. Okay, so all the information of the last 10,000 years. It's only what 10% of the all the information. So we're generating staggering amounts of information. I just grab my phone and I just wag it around. I'm generating a string of data, right? That somebody is collecting and storing, right, and analyzing on why did I do that, right? And trying to mine that data to predict or create a model about me and try to predict my behavior, right? And they're pretty good at it, right? I mean, Google's pretty good at it. The other day I was at Best Buy and I was looking at a TV and I wanted to research, about this TV, and I was standing in front of it and I'm looking at the SKU and I go to Google, I type the first letter, right, and immediately the TV comes up. That's scary. Right, that Google knows that I'm there, and that's exactly what I want. Right, that's the review comes up, and so it knows what I'm looking at. Obviously, it's aggregating lots and lots of information of other folks who have searched the same exact TV, standing at the same GPS location, right? And it's aggregating all this information to try to predict what I want, and it's very good at it, right? They say that Google's very good at predicting your next, your life to a 93% accuracy, right? We live very boring lives, right? We just have a very, very predictable life, right? So anyway, so the amount of information that we're generating is just staggering. So databases like Mongo are designed to be able to store all this information across geographical locations, right? Have a high level of redundancy, right? So that if nodes go down, you still have the data replicated in many different nodes. It's highly scalable, and all these databases are really taking the database industry by storm, right? So definitely let's play around with it, okay? So we've already been as part of the setup of the environment setup at the beginning of the semester. You already installed MongoDB, but we haven't actually used it for anything, right? I've only asked you to test it, make sure that it's up and running. So let's play around with it. So when you install Mongo, there were two executables that we really cared about, right? MongoD. Right, MongoD is for starting the database, which I've already done here. Right, I can do sudo MongoD, and then get it up and running. Right, and if it's listening at this port, right? It's listening at local, in my local server here, local machine here, 127.0.0.1. That's the local machine. And typically, the default port that it listens at is 27,017, right? So if you get something like this, you know it's up and running and waiting for communication. Yes. Once it's running, we can connect to it using the second executable that we're going to be using in class, which is Mongo, just Mongo, right? It's a client line interface, right? Right. If you start that, it connects to a database, right? And it's ready to start interacting with the database, right? With the MongoDB database. So there are just a few commands of interest. You can say, show me all the databases, and these are all the databases that I've been using for the last couple of semesters. For CS 5610 in the summer, in the fall, in the spring, and many other courses that I teach. So these are all the databases that we've been playing around with. In particular, we've been using the test database, right? The test database to store the test application that you implement, you installed very early on just to set it up to see if MongoDB was running. That's the database that we've been storing stuff in there, right? So we're going to be using that test. Let me get in there. We're going to say use the test database. Right. Once you go into the test database, you can start storing data into that particular database. Okay. Now in SQL databases, relational databases, data is stored in what we call tables, right? And tables contain records, right? We sometimes refer to as rows, right? In non-relational databases, we have equivalents, right? Instead of tables, we call them collections, right? Instead of rows or records, we call them documents, okay? So let's create a collection. Or here, you can show the current collection. You can say show collections. Right now, we have a couple of collections, which is the equivalent of tables, right, in relational databases. We have messages, student models. Let's create a new one. To create a new one, you just insert, right? You just insert something in there, and boom, it creates the collection. To invoke commands with the database, you prepend your commands with the letters DB, right? DB, then DB dot, and then the command that you want, right? You can insert, you can delete, you can find things around. Okay. So for instance, we can do a DB insert, and then DB, the name of the collection. How about movies? Movie. I don't like plurals. I prefer to use always singular, especially in English, since words are not consistently pluralized the same way, right? So I prefer to just use singular, right? And so there is no mistake. So movie as opposed to movies, and then I want to be able to insert objects in there, and we can say maybe a title, and this would be maybe Titanic. Okay, so notice that it comes back with a result saying yes, we were able to insert one document in there. Okay. Notice that if I ask it to show me the databases, the collections. Show collections. Notice that movie collection is now there, right? It wasn't there just 2 seconds ago. And we can retrieve the data that we just stored in there by saying db.movie and then find. Find is a method that allows you to find things, right, following a particular criteria. Find me, movies rated, PG-13, from 2013, right? You can provide criteria. If you don't provide any criteria like this, it just retrieves all of them. So we can say find, and boom, it retrieves that one movie that we inserted. Notice that there's our title, right? The information that we gave it, and notice there's a new property in there, the underscore ID. See that? That's the primary key. This is a field that is generated by the database to uniquely identify your record. Sorry, not record, documents, right? Let's learn the jargon. We don't say records, we say documents, okay? But it's the equivalent of a record in a relational database. Yes? All right, so you don't have to bother with the underscore ID. Let's keep the primary key that it uses. All right, you can override it if you don't like to use this randomly generated primary key. You can provide your own primary key. Okay, but it's easier to just let the database choose the value for the primary key. Everybody good? All right. So let's insert another one. Let's insert now aliens. And we can do find. Notice that we have both in there, title, Titanic. Okay, one of the questions that you should be making is that, how do we choose that we wanted the property to be title, and where do we choose that that title was a string, right? That's how you would normally do in relational databases, right? You have to, whenever you create a table, you have to provide a schema, right? And say that the properties or the attributes of that table or the columns will be title, rating, director, actors, right? And some of them will be strings, some of them will be numbers, some of them will be dates, some of them will be different data types. No such thing in MongoDB, right? There is no schema support in MongoDB, right? It is the responsibility of the application to handle those schemas. Make sense, right? So I could just create a new one and say I forgot that we were using title, right? Somehow I think it's name, right? And instead of aliens, right, avatar, right? If notice that the database didn't complain. I inserted a new record, a new document into the collection where the schema is different, right? It has different properties, right? If I say find, it doesn't care that some records, some documents have title and some documents have name. See that, right? The point I'm trying to make is that this is not a relational database, right? This is an object database, right? You are storing instances of objects in the database, right? It's your responsibility to make sure that those objects have the correct schema. Mongo is not going to validate this for you. Instead, we're going to use Mongoose. Mongoose, right? It's going to do the validation for us, right? That's where in Mongoose we're going to declare a schema, right? And any interactions with the database are going to be validated by Mongoose and say, hey, no, you're not following the correct schema, right? But that's going to be at the application level as opposed to the database level. Yes. All right. So. Okay, so let's we can do find. Also, find allows you to provide a criteria, right? That allows you to filter which movie do you want. Do you want all of them, or do you want a subset of the movies? Right. For instance, I could retrieve. I can provide here a pattern match and say that I want the movie whose title is Titanic. Right, and that notice that it returns just that one instance. See that? Right. So I can provide here. This is a very trivial criteria, but I can make something more complex. Right? If this were a set of employees, I can say employees whose salary is between 50 and 75,000. That particular gender, whatever. Right? I can provide a fairly complex criteria if I want to filter out those records that I'm looking for. Okay, but you provide them as arguments, as JSON objects, right? As arguments to the find method. Everybody good? All right. I can also update. I can say update, update, and update takes two arguments. One of them is the criteria of which record am I updating, right? And so I am updating the record or document whose title is Titanic. I want to modify. I want to do something else. Okay. Let's see. So I want to change the Titanic. I want to change. I want to set. Right. I want to set the title. I want to change it to Oceanic or something. I don't know. Right. So notice that it has these commands, these $, right? These $, tell you that these are native commands to the MongoDB database that I want to set, right? I want to modify a particular attribute and change the value to be something else, right? So if I change it, notice that it comes back telling me how many records were modified, right? It found only one. Indeed, there was only one called Titanic, and I changed the title to be something else. And I can find, and notice that it returns Oceanic, Aliens, and Avatar. Everybody good? All right. So yeah, so I can create, I can retrieve, I can update, right? And I can also remove. Yes. 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 It's case sensitive. Yep. It's JavaScript, right? It's as case sensitive as JavaScript, right? You can ask it to be non case sensitive, right? You say ignore cases, right? Also, obviously, you can do regular expressions, right? You can do all sorts of things, right? So yeah, so so what I've shown you here that you can interact with the database manually, right? But that's not really what we want to do, right? We want to be able to interact with the database programmatically, right? From JavaScript running code, right, based on interactions that we might have. Yes. So let's play around with that. Let's now interact with this programmatically, right? So let's go back in here and let's create here a directory where we can play around with the database. So I'm going to say lectures, and this is the Mongo lecture. Okay, and in here we're going to create a couple. We're going to create. Let's play around with JavaScript and say movies.javascript. Okay? All right. So in here, we're going to write our code. First, we want to make sure that this is being loaded. Right? So we're going to say hello from movies. Right? And we're going to load it from our server. We're going to require that. We're going to say require. And it'll be lectures and Mongo and then movies. Right? We're going to run that. And if we restart the server, oops, let's see what happened. Oh, it's not a function yet. It's not a function. Okay, it's not a function. Let's run that again. There it is, right? It says hello from movies. So we are in that file. Yes, we are in that file. Everybody good? So it's being run from here. Okay, so here are movies. Okay, what do I want to do? Let's first create a module where we can put our code inside, right? Exports equal function. Oops, function. And let's do a console again. Let's make sure that we're here. Hello, movies. And let's change it. Now that it's a function, I need to actually call that function, right? Let's run it. All right, so we're there. Hello, movies. Very good. So what do we want to do? So we want to be able to interact with that database. Yes? Right. Notice that database is already being loaded from our test environment. Right, notice that we're loading the test environment right here. This is where the connection happens, right? This is where the connection happens right here, right? In test app.js, right? So we're going to assume that the database is we're already connected to the database, right? We're not going to deal with that. What we want to do is connect to the database here and be able to create movies using programs, all right? All right, so first of all, we're going to use Mongoose. So let's load Mongoose. Mongoose is a library. Mongoose is a library that interacts with the database MongoDB, okay? Providing a lot of the features that MongoDB does not provide. For instance, schema. Okay, validating schema whenever we are inserting stuff in the database, we want to validate that the attribute is title, not name. Okay, we want to validate things that certain things are of the correct data type, that you're giving me a date and not a number. Right? So since MongoDB doesn't support that, we have to support it at the application level, right? So Mongoose is a library that will allow us to do that, right? So we're going to require Mongoose, right? So there's Mongoose. All right. Now that we have Mongoose, let's create the schema. So we'll create movie schema. So we'll say mongoose.movie dot schema, and in here we can create the schema. We can say, for instance, that movies have a title, an attribute title, and it must be a string. Okay. We can add a couple other things. We can say we can say director, the name of the director. So that could also is a string. Okay. We can also type things such as maybe rating. Right, that might be a string as well. We can say that the date that we created this record, so created, is a date, right? So these are all the data types. Now we can provide other meta information. Let's leave it like this for now. Okay, we have the schema done. Now we want to be able to interact with these movies, right? We like to be able to create movies, retrieve movies programmatically from our code over here, right? So to do that, we need to create a model, a movie model, right? Again, using Mongoose model, right? What this is going to create is an object that allows us to interact with the database, right? It's going to provide all the CRUD operations, the deletes, the updates, right? The inserts, right? The finders, right? If this is, for those that took 5200, which I guess not many of you did, this would be like the ORM object, right? The object relational mapping object that allows you to interact with the native database in a programmatic way, right? So this needs to be named. This name here needs to be a unique name, and we give it the schema, movie schema. So meaning that I'm going to interact with the database, and I'm going to validate. I'm going to validate against that schema. You better give me those 4 attributes, and they better be strings and dates. Make sense? Right? So movie model. So let's do that. Let's create a brand new movie model. Let's create a brand new movie. Movie model. I want to insert or create. You can use create or insert, and you can give it an object, right? A title. And let's create what other movies from James Cameron? The Abyss. Anybody seen The Abyss? Not many people have seen The Abyss. So that's going to insert this record into the database. So let's rerun this. Okay, it didn't complain. And let's see what happened here. Let's see. Oops, Mongo. Let's use test show collections. There it is, movie model. See that? See that movie models? Right? That name, right, comes straight from the name that we chose, movie models. This name we chose right here, movie model, right? What Mongoose does is that it takes that name, right? It makes it all lowercase, and it pluralizes it, right? Or makes a good attempt at pluralizing that word, right? And it comes up with the name movie models. I don't like that Mongoose is taking the liberty of choosing the name of my collections, right? So I can explicitly tell it what the names of my collection is. I will see that in a minute. But we can look at the content of movie models, db movie models. We can do a find, and notice that we have, there it is, right? The Abyss. See that? That's the movie we just inserted from JavaScript. See that? Right? We did it programmatically as opposed to doing it manually at the command line over here. Make sense? That's what we want to be able to do. Right? So let's insert a couple more. So we did Avatar. We did Titanic. How about Terminator? All right. So let's run this again. And if we do a find, notice that we now have those 3, right? We have the Terminator and the Abyss. And we did it from the program, right? From JavaScript, as opposed to doing it manually. Everybody good? Everybody still with me? You okay? Yeah? All right, so we inserted a couple of movies. Let's not insert any more. I'm just going to comment that out. Let's try and retrieve them. We're going to say movie model find. Right? Notice that this is almost the same exact function that we used manually, right? .find. right? And if I do a find and I run this, notice that nothing actually happened, right? It actually did find it. It's just that we didn't do anything with the results. Unfortunately, it doesn't retrieve it. You would expect that it would be like something like this. It would find it, it would return the value, and you can then assign it to a variable. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, right? Because that's a synchronous call, right? That's a synchronous call. You make a call, and you assume that the function is going to block and going to wait for the data, and then when it's done, it's going to come back with the data, right? And going to give it to me so I can assign it to a variable so I can keep iterating over it, right? Well, it doesn't work that way. All these calls, the communication between the server. Remember, this is running on Node.js, and the database is running elsewhere, right? They're running on two completely processes. That communication is through network, right? It's a network communication. It's asynchronous. What we get here is a promise. That same thing that happened to us when we went from the browser to the server, right? We were getting not data, we were getting promises, right? Remember that? Same thing here. We're getting a promise. So instead of this, we're going to use the promise API is that this returns a object. Wait, let's do it like this first. Here's var promise. It returns a promise, and then we can. What the promise allows us to do is same thing what we did in the browser, right? It allows us to register a callback saying, hey, when you're done, when you come back later on, right? When the database server comes back with a response, let me know. Right? Call this function. Call this function. And pass me the data that. Oh, sorry. Promise. If it's successful, actually, we're gonna use a slightly different syntax instead of success. Right? We're gonna use .then. .then works more or less the same way as success and error. And it allows you to provide two functions. One function will be called if it's successful, and the other function will be called if there was an error, something wrong. Yes.
Does movie model.find return a promise?
Yes. Yep.
And how did you force it to do that? How did you force it before when it was blocking? What was the syntax?
When it was blocking, it was never blocking.
Oh.
Yeah, this was never blocking. These are all asynchronous. There are versions that are synchronous. Like you can say, create, and I want it to be synchronous, meaning I do want to block, right? But it's bad practice, right? Because here in Node.js, you only have one thread, right? And that thread is for the server. The server is supposed to be always ready for incoming requests from the client, right? Because you can have thousands of people trying to hit the same server. You can't have that single thread busy waiting for a database to respond, right? Okay. Otherwise, many folks that are hitting the server will be put in a queue and waiting for the thread to come back, right? So you can't let that thread block, right? So if it's successful, it'll pass us the data. In this case, movies, hopefully, or if it's unsuccessful, it'll pass us with an error. Okay. Yes. Yes, in the controller you can use it as well. But if you use it on the controller, the data you get back is not actually data. It's a metadata, right? It's a meta object that contains the data, right? It contains an attribute called data, which is the actual data, plus some meta information, status information, whether it was successful, not successful, if there was any errors, timestamps, many other metadata in there. Yeah, it would be response.data. Unlike what we're doing, right? The .success unwraps, right? It unwraps that metadata, right? Providing you with the data. Okay, success does that for us. Yes. Over here, it's not wrapped. You get the raw data. So we can say we can retrieve and say console.log, and then just print out the movies. All right. So let's run this again. And there they are. Right, the two movies that we had inserted earlier, the Abyss Terminator, right, that we had inserted earlier. Now we are retrieving it, and there we have it. Okay, everybody good? Yes? All right. Okay, So I think we have enough to be dangerous with. Let's actually implement something that would allow us to create movies, retrieve movies, things like that. Yes? Yes. I'm sorry? Oh yeah. So just like underscore ID, all fields that start with an underscore, those are managed fields, right? Those are fields that the database is managing, right? That you shouldn't be, dealing with. Right? You shouldn't be mocking around. You can read them, you can use them for retrieval later on or things like that, but you shouldn't be modifying them, right? You should only stick to your own properties. This one, the underscore V, that's for versioning, right? It keeps track of the version. And it's useful for calculating indices, right, for optimization purposes, right? So just like in relational databases, to improve the performance of databases, right, you index. You index all your records so that you can retrieve them faster, right? So those are all metadata that Mongo uses for managing all that. Okay. All right, so let's build a little application that will allow us to add or remove movies. Okay, so to do that, we're gonna need Express. Yes, we don't need Express. So I'm gonna and just like we did earlier, we're gonna receive an instance of Express right here as an argument, and we're gonna have to pass it from the server. There it is, right? App. And what do we want to do? We want to do things such as app dot. We're going to receive a post that is going to allow us to create new movies. Yes, right. Let's be able to create new movies. And it'll be something like API Oops, sorry. So slash API lecture slash movie, right? And if we post, we're going to go to a create movie function, right? Which is going to be implemented down here. So we're going to say function create movie, right? And it's going to receive a request and a response from the client, and hopefully the movie will be in the body of the request, right? And then we're going to insert, right? We're going to insert it how? We're going to say movie model dot create and then pass the movie object. Yes, right? And movie object, this is also going to return a promise. It's going to return a promise. And in the promise, we can define two functions, right? One of the functions will be called if it's successful, successful. And another function will be called if it's unsuccessful. Yes? If it's successful, it'll pass us the actual movie object that was inserted in the database, including the ID of the object and everything, right? We could send that back as a response. We could say respond, send back the movie we just inserted in the database. Or if there was an error, we can send back an error message. We can send back a status status 400. There was some error, and we're going to send back the error object. Okay? All right, everybody good? All right. Okay, so let's do that. Let's see. Oh, I mentioned earlier. Notice that we are storing it where? In movie models, right? In movie models. So it chose the name of the table of the collection on its own, right? Mongoose chose that name, but I already had a database movie. See that? Right. So I often would like to control exactly what actual collection I want to use. So I can override that. See, in the schema, I can tell it, hey, don't go off and try to come up with your own name, right? And try to pluralize it or whatever. I'm going to tell you exactly the name of the collection I want you to use, collection movie. So now it's going to use this name of the collection, which I already have, right? I already have it right here, movie. That already contains some movies in there. Yes? So it's going to use that collection instead. All right? Yes? Yes. If it's not there, it'll create it. Yes. Yeah, it's created all on demand. All right, so that's on the server side. Let's go back on the client side. So in the client side, we're here. Let's create a very quick and dirty Angular application. So those will be index. We'll say movies.html, right? And let's see. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. So this is movies, and let's do h1 movies database. Okay, and let's start the server. Make sure that we are in there. We can navigate to that. So we have where is it under? This is under lectures, Mongo, movies. So lectures, Mongo, movies.html. And that didn't work. What? Am I in the right place? Oh, you know what? I think I changed it to 4,000. Why did I do that? 4,000. No. Am I misspelling it something? Lectures. Oh wait, no, it's under public. Public. Wait, where did I put it? Oh, I put it under here. I put it in the wrong. Sorry, let's move it here. It's lectures, new, Mongo, and I'm going to move movies HTML in there. Let's move this here. Try it again. There we go. Movies database. Yes? All right. Let's make this a little prettier. Let's bring some of the styling. Let's go href. Let's go up one, CSS, and let's bring in Bootstrap. Okay. And let's put this inside of a container. Container fluid. Right? Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's see. Maybe we want an input field so we can type in the name of the movie, right? So we'll have maybe label, title, right? And then maybe an input field. Input, we're going to give it a class of a form control, right? There it is. So we're going to be able to type the title of the movie. Let's keep it simple, just a title, all right? Just for time purposes, right? And then we'll have a button down below, class button and button. Let's see, we'll call it block and button. Let's see, primary, right? And it's going to say create. Okay, so we have a create button, and what we want to do is that if we click on that button, right, we want to do something like if ng click, it'll be something like model.create movie, and I want to pass the object movie up, and the title will be right here. So the model for the title will be right here, model, ng model. This is the movie.title. Okay, I want to pass that over to the controller. We don't have a controller, so let's create a little controller. For that, we'll need an Angular application, so ng app. So this will be a movie app, and the whole thing will be handled by this controller over here, ng controller, and this is the movie controller. Okay. And our application will be implemented in a separate script, stored locally, and it will be called movies.javascript. Okay? All right. Then let's implement the JavaScript for this. You should all feel comfortable with this, right? So I'm just going really fast on this, right? You should already know how to do this. So movies.javascript. Let's declare everything in an iffy design pattern, right? So we'll do Angular module, what's it called? Movie app. Yeah, movie app. And it doesn't depend on anything. And it's going to declare a new controller. What's it called? What's the controller called? What is it? Like that, right? Please, if I misspell something, let me know. Here's the movie controller. var vm equal this, and we have one event handler right now. It's movie create movie, right? So create movie is create movie implemented in a function of the same name, and it receives movie right here. Yes, everybody good? All right, we have the movie that we want to send over to the server. We want to send that over to the server. How do we send it over? Using $HTTP, right? $HTTP will allow us to send what? A post to the URL. What's the URL? What is the URL? This is the URL, right? That's where I want to post my new movie to. Right, there it is. And I'm going to send the movie object over to the server. Everybody good? Yes? All right. Okay. Let's try it out. Let's see. Do we miss out something? We probably forgot something, right? Movie app, movie controller. And let's run it. Let's see if we broke something. So let's refresh. See if the browser is complaining about something. It looks like it is complaining. It says Angular is not defined. Oh, obviously, right? We never loaded the Angular library. Let's load the Angular library. So that's where? That's script, source. They go up, up, down to Angular. There it is. Let's try it again. All right. Let's see. If I click on something and I click, does it generate a network? It doesn't. It looks. Did it post? It posted. Did it post anything? Actually, it didn't post anything. Why didn't it post anything? It generated the post. Oh no, that's the get. Oh, that's the get retrieving the JavaScript. Okay, so it did not generate. It did not post anything. Why didn't it post anything? Do we miss something? Oh, I know. Notice that here we're using VM. See that? So we're binding everything to the instance of the controller. But here we're calling it movie. We're calling it model. See that? To refer to the controller. So we need to use the controller as, right, syntax so that we can use that controller using that name. So let's try that again. Okay, did it post? Okay, it looked like it posted. There it is, our title. That's when it went out to the server. Let's see if the server received it. Let's go to the server. Where's the server? Lecture, there it is. Here's our create. Let's print out the server, the movie that the server is getting. Console.log. There's the movie that the server is receiving. All right, let's look at the terminal. Let's restart the server. Restart the server. Let's put this on the left-hand side so that we can view both of them at the same time. Oh, it's coming up empty. I think we have the same problem I had in the previous lecture, right? That it might be the wrong format. How do we fix that? I configured the the format of the headers, right? So let me copy that. And let's do that here. Well, I'm going to configure. I'm going to say .config configuration, right? In a function here, it says function configuration, and we're going to need HTTP provider, and post that. Let's try it again. Let's refresh. And let's have the server on the left-hand side and see if we fix that. Uh-oh. Is the server running? Okay, there it is. It is making it to the server, right? It's making it to the server, and the server is supposed to be doing what with that information? It's supposed to be inserting it into a database. So presumably it made it all the way here, right? And did the communication, let's see, did the network say that we posted something? We did, right? And did it come back from the server? Notice that it came back from the server. See that? The server came back saying, yes, I inserted it, and it has that ID. And let's see if it actually made it in there. Right? We can say db.movie.find There they are. You see that? All those bogus movies I was inserting, there they are. See that? Right? Notice that even the ones that we inserted that didn't have a body, right? Those were inserted as well. Yeah. So we might want to remove all those. Right. So how do we remove them? How do we remove? What we want to be able to do is retrieve them from the database, right? And we can display them on our user interface. Yes. So let's retrieve them from the database. So for instance, when we first come to the controller, right? When this controller first loads, right? What we want to do, the very, very first thing that we want to do, right? Maybe inside of an init function, is retrieve all those movies, right? We can say http.get all the movies, right? And we're going to say slash API lectures movie, right? It's going to go out and retrieve the information, and once it comes back, we're going to do a success, right? When a success comes back, we want to render movies. We want to render the movies, right? Render the movies, and we're going to implement that in a function down here, render movies, and it's going to receive the movies as an argument. Yes? And the only thing that we need to do is just send the movies to the HTML for rendering, right? We just send it across the fence, right, for the HTML to render those movies. Make sense? Right? And then the HTML, once it has those movies, right, it can render them down here. We can say use UL class list group, right, and then use a line item as a list item and display the movie title. We're going to display the movie title, and we're going to iterate over all the movies. Ng repeat of movie. Inside of all the movies, inside of the model.movies, right? So let's see. Oops, it's saying there is no get, right? There is no get. So it went out to the server, right? It went out to the server, did it, right? It went out to the server. Hey, I went out, but the server doesn't know what to do with this URL, yeah? So we need to implement it on the server side. All right, so let's implement it on the server side. So let's go to the back to the server. We say, okay, I'm going to listen for an incoming get. I'm going to listen for an incoming get request, and I'm going to do a find all movies, right? And let's implement that. It'll be something like function find all movies request response, right? It's going to do a movie model, and then we're going to do a find. This is going to respond with a promise, yes? A promise, and the promise will be they look very much the same. So I'm just going to copy this. They all look more or less the same. This is going to receive what? The list of movies, presumably, right, back from the server, and we're going to send those list of movies back to the client. Yes, right? We're going to do a find, and then if it's successful, this function will be called. If it's not successful, this function will be called. Right, here's the movies that we're going to send back to the client. All right, so let's restart the server. And let's see, did it work? There they are. Those are all the movies that I had initially inserted there, right? Oceanic, Aliens, and all the bogus movies that were there. Make sense? Right? Also, if I create brand new movies, right? Movie 1, 2, 3. If I create, notice that it doesn't look like it's adding it, right? I will only see it if I refresh the page, and then it goes back to the server to fetch the data back. So notice that we don't store anything on the client. The client doesn't store any information. The client only has a snippet of the subset of data, only enough for rendering purposes. After that, right, the client has no recollection of any data whatsoever. Yes? Right? It is the server who always has the complete information. Actually, not even the server has the information. The data only ever lives in the database, right? It's not in the RAM of the server. It is not in the RAM of the browser, right? It's only ever in the database. Yes, that makes the applications more scalable, right? Because the server doesn't have to maintain any information for any one user. See that? We oftentimes refer to these as stateless applications, right? When we don't have to remember anything, right? And that makes it more scalable, is because you can have thousands, tens of thousands of users, and you can use the same exact server, right? Because it doesn't need you don't need more RAM, right? You don't need more resources to be able to handle even a larger number of people, because you don't need to remember anything, right? Everything is stored in the database. All right, so we have a problem here, right? Whenever we create a new movie, whenever we create a brand new movie and we create it, we don't see it, right? We need to like refresh the page to see that movie we just created, right? So let's change that a little bit. What we can do is here. Notice that when we create an object, when we let's see, wait a minute. No, not here. In the client, when we do a post, right, and create the movie, what we'd like to be able to do is go fetch the new list of movies, right, so we can render it again. Right? Remember, what does this do? This returns a promise, right? We could do something like this, right? Listen for the incoming, when it comes back. If it's successful, I like to go fetch the movies again, right? So where is that logic for fetching the movies? It's right here, right? We did it right here. You see that? But I don't want to have to copy this, right, and do it all over again. So how about we encapsulate this in a function, right? Let's put this in a function. Put it in a function. Function find all movies, right? And let's put the HTTP right here. There it is. See that? So instead of having this over here, we're going to call the function find all movies. Now I can reuse that function. I can reuse that function right here. Right? Go fetch them. Go create a new movie. After you create a movie, go fetch them again. Right? And so now you can re-render them. Make sense? Right? So that if I refresh my page here, right, and I create movie ABC, and I create, notice that now it's being added right away. See that? Right? We see it immediately. Right? Okay, so we created. So now, we out of the CRUD operations, we've done only just create, and we've done read. Right? Now we need update, and we need delete. Let's do delete first, because this is full of garbage, right? Lots of garbage here. Let's empty some of our garbage. Let me close this. To do that, let's add like an X on the right-hand side that will allow us to remove that movie. Yes? All right. So to do that, in the HTML, at the end, right here, we're going to add a hyperlink, and we're going to add a span class, and this will be a glyphicon with an X with a remove, right? No, remove. That's going to give us an X, right? Let's see. There they are, the X's. But we're going to pull it on the right-hand side. It'll look nicer. So let's see. We're going to do here a class. We're going to pull this right. So it lists us on the right-hand side. Yes? Right? So that when we click on any one of these, we're going to be able to remove this garbage over here. So let's do that. So if I click on this, I want to notify ng-click. If I could type today, I'm going to notify model.remove movie, or delete movie is a better name, delete movie. I'm going to pass as argument the ID of the movie that I want to remove. Yes? So it'll be, which is movie dot underscore ID. Right? All these objects have this ID that comes back from the server. Right? Remember, this is all coming from the server. Right? If I refresh, look at the network. Right? There's not lectures. Wait, lectures? Movies? No. Oh yes, MPI, yes, right. API lectures movie, there it is, right? These are all the objects that are coming. We're back, and notice that they all have the IDs. So we're going to pass the ID. So on the controller, we're going to listen for that incoming delete movie, right? Delete movie implemented here, and there it is. It says function delete movie. We're going to pass the movie ID. And we are going to generate an HTTP delete, right? and the URL is going to be exactly the same, right? Lectures movie, right? I'm going to pass the movie ID as part of the URL. Yes, all right. And what do we do after we delete? What do we do? We're going to find all the movies again, right? So that it re-updates the list, right? So we're going to do a find all movies. Find all movies. Okay? Wait, success, sorry. Yes, thank you. So success, find all movies. Find all movies. Notice that I'm passing the argument of the function. I'm not actually calling it, right? Careful there, right? So I'm passing the name of the function as an argument. All right, so if I refresh this and I click on this X, notice that the server complains saying there is no such thing, no such URL listening for that delete. So we have to go back to the server to implement that, right? So we're going to be listening for an incoming delete, right? And at the end of this URL, we're going to have the movie ID as an argument. And this is going to be delete movie, and delete movie is going to be implemented right here, right? Function delete movie. It's going to again request response. Right? It's going to take we're going to parse the movie ID from the request, from the params, right? Movie ID, and we want to remove it. We're going to say movie model dot delete, and delete takes an argument of what record do we want to remove, right? What document do we want to remove? You need to be able to refer to the particular document that you want to remove. Right, and so we're going to filter by ID because that's what we have, right? The movie ID, that's what we have. And once it's successful, we're going to respond with success, right? We're going to say we're going to copy this right here. I'm going to say I'm going to go send back a success. So I'm going to send back a success. That's 200, or an error message. Right, so let's restart the server. See, and let's start removing things. Let's see if it works. It didn't work. Okay, let's see. Do we have an error message here? We have a 500. Uh-oh, the server crashed. Okay, what's it saying? Delete blah 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 is not a function. Oh, did I misspell it? Oh, maybe it's not delete. Maybe it's remove. Remove. Let's restart the server. Let's see. Let's refresh. Let's try it again. There it is. We now can remove that bogus information, right? Let's remove all these movies. Let's move all those, right? Right, and actually create real James Cameron movies. Terminator, create, aliens, create. Everybody okay? Makes sense, right? So out of the CRUD operations, we were able to do create, we were able to do reads, we were able to do deletes, right? The only one missing is update, right, for the CRUD operation. So let's look at the updates, right? So for that, we need to be able to select a movie that we want to modify, right? So to do that, let's add another icon here that will allow us to retrieve the movie we want to update, yes, that we want to edit. All right, so let's do that. Let's add like a cog at the end of that, right? So let's add here another one here, and instead of a remove icon, we want maybe a cog, right? And if I click on it, I want to do a select movie, right? So meaning I have to go retrieve the movie, right, so that I can populate my form, so that I can then type and change and make any changes, and then click on update button to send back my changes. Make sense? So the cog will select the movie that I want to modify, and I have to go fetch it at the database, right, and retrieve, because not only the title, I might want to change the director, the plot, right, the poster, right, the actors and whatnot, the rating. So I need to select that so I can modify any one of those attributes, right? So let me retrieve select movie. Let's see if I refresh. There's our cog, right? let me change the order. I think I want the X afterwards. There we go. So we have the X and the cog. The cog is going to call the select movie on our controller, which doesn't exist. So let's go to our controller and let's implement the select, right? So this is vm.select movie, implemented in select movie. So this is function select movie, and we have the movie ID that we want to select. So we're going to go out to the server and go fetch that movie, right? We're going to fetch that movie. I'm going to copy this because it's going to be almost the same as this, verbatim. But instead of a delete, it'll be a get, right? Because I'm reading that particular movie that has that particular movie ID. Instead of rendering all the movies, I'm only going to get one movie, right? I just want that one movie, not all of them. So this is a render movie, right? That one movie, and that will be something like function render movie will receive as an attribute, as a parameter, the actual movie that I want to render, and I'm going to send it to the template for rendering. So movie vm movie equal movie, and there it is. So it should render right away. Okay. All right. So if I do that, notice that the server is going to complain, right? If I go to network and I click on this and select, notice that it complains, right? It went out to the server and I asked for that movie, but the server complains saying, well, I don't know what you're saying, right? There is no URL mapping for that. So let's go back to the server. Let's go back to the server and implement that endpoint, right? It's going to be this one. So we're going to do a get. It's going to receive movie ID, and that's going to be implemented in something like find movie by ID. Right, that's an appropriate name, and let's implement it right here. Function movie ID. The ID is in the parameters. So I'm going to parse out the parameters. There it is, and I'm going to retrieve that movie by ID. So there's a couple of ways that I can do this. One of them is I can use my find method. And provide a criteria by filter. I can say I only want the movies whose ID is movie ID. Okay, that would work. The problem with this is that find always returns an array. Okay, an array of objects that match that criteria. We know that we're filtering by the primary key, so we know it's just one movie, right? But even if it's just one, it'll return an array. So either we remember that it's an array and we return the first element of that array, or we can use another finder method, right? Which is find by ID. Yes, find by ID. Underneath, it's implemented with just a plain old find, right? With the filtering of the filter by ID. Make sense? Right. But it knows that IDs are unique, right? That they are going to return just one, right? So it unwraps the array and it returns just the first element in the array. Well, so it's syntactic sugar, right? And I can provide just the ID right here. Okay, it's just a little bit easier to write, for us lazy developers. So there it is. So find by ID. Once I have the ID, I am going to, again, send back all this, right? I get back the only movie that matches, and I'm going to send back as a JSON object that one movie. Yes? Everybody good? All right. So let's refresh this, and let's go back and let's clear this out. So let me select this, and it looks like it came back. Okay, there it is. I selected aliens, and the server came back with aliens. If I click on this, looks like the server came back with Terminator, so that's good. Looks like it's coming back, but nothing is being populated here. Why not? Why not? Let's see. Oh, okay, I see. The model is movie.title, so it's a local variable, right? It's not connected to the instance in the controller. So let's fix that. So this would be model.movie.title, and this would be model.movie. Right? So let's refresh. Let's see if this works. Let's see if I broke anything. Let's put here avatar. Let's see if that still works. Okay, that still works. Very good. How about the selection? Okay, notice that it does work. See that? I can click on this, and as I select, notice that it updates the form up there. So I can now change the title. Yes, I can manipulate the title. So that was read. That was a read operation, right? So typically there's at least 2 read operations. One of them is retrieve all of them, right? Find all, which we've implemented, and the other one is find one, by ID. Plus, you can create any number of finder methods, additional finder methods by criteria. For instance, in our assignment, we have a couple of other finder methods: find by username and find by credentials, right? But we definitely have 2, which is find all, and we have find by ID, right? Those 2 are at least those 2. All right, now that I have it, now that I have Avatar, I like to be able to change it and then click on an update button, right? Click on an update button so that it goes back to the server, right, for updating in the database, right? So let's do that. Let's add an update button, right? And we'll give it a different color, success, a green color, and this will be update. And it will call the update movie here. It will pass the model.movie. Yes, right? And in the controller will be implemented as update movie. So let's copy that. Update movie, right? Implemented right here. So function update movie, and here's the new movie, and we're going to I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to say I'm going to do a put. Yes, I'm going to do a put. That's the ID of the movie that I'm updating, and I'm going to pass as argument the new movie, right, with a new title, new director, new whatever. And what I want to do is I want to go fetch all the movies, right, because the list lists all the movies, right, including the brand new movie that I just updated, correct? Right, with the new title, new everything. So I'm going to do a find all movies. I'm going to change this, right? Go fetch me all the movies because I need to re-render the list of all the movies because I changed the name of one of them. Yes? All right. So if I refresh and try to update it and I do change it to something and I say update, notice that it's complaining. Movie ID is not defined. Movie ID. I think I misspelled it. Let me save that. Let's try it again. So let's grab aliens and update movie. What? Movie. Oh, I guess I need to pass both, huh? Movie. Right, so from the HTML, I guess I need to pass both things, right? The movie. Well, actually, you know what? The ID is inside of the movie object, so I think I had it right the first time. So this will be the movie object, and this will be movie dot, right, underscore ID. Right, so I refresh, let's see, aliens, and I change, I say update. All right, so the put operation is going to the server, but the server doesn't know what to do with it, right? So let's go to the server and implement that. Let's go on the server side, and let's grab this get, and let's generate a put. So we're going to be listening for that incoming put, and it's going to be update movie, implemented down here. So this will be function update movie, request respond. I'm going to retrieve the movie from the parameter, and I'm going to retrieve the actual movie object from the body. Right, there it is. I have the movie. Now I have the movie and the ID, and I just need to update. I'm going to say movie model dot update, right? The criteria that I want to update is by ID. So find me the movie whose ID is movie ID, and then I want to set a couple of things. I want to set the title equal to my movie title. See that? And after I update, I am going to respond saying that everything is dandy. Right? I'm going to say, so this is going to be the result, the status. It's going to come back with a status saying whether it was successful or not, how many records were updated, and I'm going to send back a status, okay, or the error. All right. All right. So let's see. Let's restart the server. Let's see if we worked. So we go to aliens, right, and I update aliens 3. And say updates. Notice that it updated. See that? Right? And this is aliens. I can change aliens Covenant. It's a new movie coming up, I think in May. Yet another aliens movie. There we go. So we were able to implement all the CROT operations, right, from the client to the server all the way down to the database, right? And the database is now showing storing all the data in permanent storage, so that even if you restart the server crashes and whatnot, right? When the server starts up, all the data will be there. Right? So we've created, in an hour or so, we were able to create an entire, little application that exercises the entire mean stack. Right? We have Angular on the front end. We have Express in the middle tier, right? Listening for an incoming HTTP request. We have Node.js hosting the entire HTML and HTTP and all the web services, and then MongoDB on the back end being able to store all this data. Yes? Right, I hope this will help you getting started with a new assignment. Yes? I will. All right, thank you. Yes.
Do we have to implement like storing the sort order of the widgets for the assignment?
No, not for this assignment. For the next assignment. All right, I pushed the code. It's now available. All right, thank you. Yes.